In this meeting, it's February 20th, 2024, Littleton Conservation Commission. Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and open up with the approval of minutes from February 6th, 2024. Does anyone have any omissions or corrections to the minutes from February 6th? If no one has any edits, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that the board approve the meeting minutes of February 6th, 2024 as printed.
Thank you, Andrew. Is there a second?
Second.
That's Ed. Thank you. Andrew, would you like to do a roll call for us?
Certainly. Kyle.
Kyle Maxwell.
Carl.
Carl Malberg, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, great. What I'd like to do is add a few things for administrative discussions. One is the open space, a support letter that we'd like to discuss sending. And then the other is some change of dates. We are, as Amy has alluded, the town would very much like for us not to meet on the 5th. So we're going to go to our original date of March 19th. So after tonight, our next meeting will be March 19th. And then the calendar is going to change a little bit because town meeting has been moved. It's now May 7th, which is a Tuesday. So Amy will have to kind of look at the spring schedule to look at that. So we'll talk about that as well. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add to administrative discussions? If not, let's go ahead and start with a request for Certificate of Compliance 69 Mattawanakie, Mass DEP 204-0894 for a retaining wall.
Yeah, so this was the retaining wall, and they finished, and we're just having a hard time getting the as-built and everything submitted. But everything is stable out there. This is where they are currently working on the boathouse.
Okay,
so whatever they call that.
So we're hold it over to March 19th then?
No, it's all stable.
Okay. It is okay, good. Yeah. Does anyone wish to make a recommendation for that?
I'll make a motion that the commission issue a certificate of compliance for 69 Mattawanakie.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Kyle.
Kyle Maxwell.
Carl.
Carl Malberg, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Let's go into the Amy. Do you want to talk a little bit about a support letter for the open space, the rec plan?
Yeah, Oriana. So there's only, I think, officially 4 entities that need to approve the OSRP. It's the Planning Board, Town Administrator's Office, MAPC, and then the state. But we're certainly looking for letters of support from all the other, commissions and departments. If you feel so moved.
We would greatly appreciate it.
Right, and that's something that historically the Conservation Commission has done. So I would make a motion to have a letter of support for the OSRP with great thanks as well for those people that endured that process.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call vote. Carl.
Carl Malberg, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxwell, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, I'll draft something up and send it over to you, Sarah, to look at and sign. Does that sound
perfect?
And sweet.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to hold off the review of the order of conditions because it's 7:35. We're going to jump into the continued public hearing. Notice of intent 18 Porter, Mass DEP 204-0998, which is a replacement of an existing deck. It's been a long time, so we welcome you all back. So who's here? We did receive Karen Environmental Consulting buffer zone restoration sequence. Okay, Michael?
Hello, everybody.
You- Can you
So yeah,
reintroduce
it's
yourself to the
perfect
board?
timing to discuss all of this.
We got a bad
Um,
connection.
We are actually at a perfect time to.
Michael, what you may
You
want to
can't
do
hear
is
anything?
turn your camera off because it's buffering. So to see if that
Okay.
will help. Okay.
Okay.
And then, Michael, if you want to start from the beginning and just reintroduce yourself, that would be great.
All right. My name's Michael Samula with Sustainable Property Group. Is that coming in better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. So at 18 Porter, actually at this time is looking within the week that we will be starting with a pretty early and strong growing season. So this is a perfect time to discuss the mitigation plan for the buffer zone for the restoration of the two areas that we identified. And I believe I hope you definitely got the report from Karen, but also from there we put together just a brief one-page site layout with the two locations discussed in there, kind of highlighted. I believe in
Amy, I don't know that
they're
Michael's going to
just
be able to share his
circled
screen.
in
Can you
black.
share that image?
Yeah, everything's been a little wonky here, so let me see if I can get it up.
Michael, do you have it? Do you want to try and share it?
Yeah, I can try. Hopefully it's
Oh, here
the
we go.
connection's better.
Oh, here we
How's
go.
that? That's
There we
fine.
go. Yeah, that's it. So that'll be perfect to discuss the comments from the Karen Environmental Consulting report. Essentially, the strip between the house and the wetland, which is also then between the deck and the wetland, there's actually a number of invasive species there. A lot of bittersweet throughout the property in every direction that you look, unfortunately. And so part of what we'd propose to do would be to cut all of that back if possible. In the present strip, of course, and this is actually for both the area behind the house, that approximately 27 foot by 4 foot section, and as well as the 40 by 25 foot section, which is almost entirely bittersweet there, unfortunately. We then plan on planting a row of shrubs in that strip behind the house with 4 foot spacings, and then we'll include gray dogwood, American hazelnut, and swamp azalea. The shrubs will be a minimum of 3 feet tall when they are planted, and then we'll mulch any disturbed surfaces with 2 inches of leaf litter and leaves. The other area, pretty much the same thing. However, the bittersweet removal is going to actually require an excavator upon further review. I just can't imagine. I've pulled bittersweet countless times, and if you don't get it within the first few months of it growing, it's pretty tough to pull up by hand. So we'll likely have to excavate that area, which will allow us to grade it. It's already graded. It's pretty much at grade because it's right next to the wetland on that side of the lot. But we'll be able to two things. Most importantly, rake the surface of the area with the teeth of the excavator to remove any additional surface debris, rocks, and other roots, and then plant that area with a random pattern to create a natural appearance. That random pattern will include at least 6 trees, 2 yellow birch, two black tupelo, and 2 black spruce. And then we'll plant 10 shrubs with that. Winterberry, arrowwood, and then those will also have a minimum of 3 feet, the shrubs, but I actually didn't mention the trees will be at least 4 feet tall. The one thing I think that may delay planting would be just acquiring the plants. since it's early in the season. But we should be able to, there's a number of places where we should be able to get it. And then finally, and pretty importantly, would be to create a physical barrier between the driveway and the plantings so we don't get any runoff or debris from the driveway into that area. We are working with the client just on what they prefer with respect to large rocks, fencing, or ballards and posts. So that's the thoughts there. Obviously, if there's any conflicts with this plan, based on your requirements, we're open for suggestions. Oh, and then of course, we'll have a minimum of 2 years, 2 growing seasons to continue to remove any of those invasive species that may just try to come back in right away.
Michael, can I ask you a quick question in regards to the ladder, the one that you were just speaking of that requires an excavation? Is there anything there that will define a delineated area so that excavator doesn't do any overreach? Like, how are they going to know where to dig?
Yes. So you mean closest to that wetland?
Yes.
That's marked on the map?
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually there's 2 within that approximate highlighted area, the 40 by 25. There are 2 or 3, I believe 2 large trees. I'm not sure of the species. One of which is actually maple, because I remember they tagged them. But there's 2 hardwood trees there. I don't think it's a pine. 2 hardwood trees that are on the, is this north and south? This has got to be. Amy, is north up? I just can't see the.
Oh, I don't know. This is your map, so it doesn't have the.
No, I've got it. Okay, north is
Yeah.
up. So on that northern portion, there are 2 trees that we really won't be able to get by. So that will keep us away. And what's perfect, in all honesty, is that the bittersweet is more in the southwestern corner, almost through the middle of that 1,000 square foot area, which the reason for that barrier between the driveway and this space is because the driveway is only about 5 to 10 feet off of the highlighted area, that approximate 40 by 25 square foot area. So we really and there's, since it is so level, and since we're hopefully going to be able to do this in a day or 2, we're hoping not to need silt fence or any erosion control, but it's if it's needed, and if you guys think it's needed, then it's something we could add. There actually, oddly enough, there's some old silt fence from, I believe, the neighbors that's back there off the property, that has just been left and abandoned and sitting back there.
Just a couple other questions I had on number 7. You mentioned large rocks, fencing, or bollards. Large rocks would be great. Fencing, you would have to let us know what type of fencing, just to make sure that animals have free pass. And then I think historically, when we look at growing seasons, we look at minimum of 3 growing seasons. So I think that might be something that we would ask to be changed. Do any commissioners have any questions on the environmental report that was sent, or questions for Michael?
Yeah, you covered the one that I had, Sarah, about it being 3 years. I know they said at least 2, but I think we would want that to be changed to at least 3.
Yeah.
We're pushing for the large rock because it's just going to be so much better for any erosion and and water control.
Okay. I would like to say and acknowledge for Karen Environmental that I was pleased to see the reference of when the plantings they're talking about actual feet. I know sometimes we go by, the small tub diameter of the pot or things like that, but I'm happy to see that we're going more towards taller trees and larger diameters as well. Okay.
And give them a better chance to survive that first year.
Okay. Amy, any thoughts Anything else?
Does the commission want erosion controls at that 40 by 25 area? Is the only excavation the teeth, or are you actually?
It's only the teeth. We would be basically removing what's there now, the natural leaves and litter there now, and just scraping that back, exposing whatever soil's there, planting in that soil, and then putting leaves
And you're taking your excavated matter off-site?
or other debris that would be picked up and removed, but we won't be scooping any. Huh?
Michael, are you taking your excavated matter off-site?
I'm sorry, say that.
With your excavator, what you're taking from the ground and kind of scarifying up, are you removing that off-site, the invasives?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that will be disposed of.
okay. So I've been out on the property twice and I think it's flat. I don't think that we have to put the
Okay.
erosion controls on that side.
Okay. I'll defer to you on that because I have not been out there, but I guess as long as they stay within that area, once you start chasing these invasives, I would imagine that they extend well beyond that.
They
square
do,
that you draw on
and
the plan, right?
they do, specifically to the west of that square, and we're gonna have to go a little further to just to make both the client and our lives easier on the follow-up for every 3 years. Otherwise, it's gonna be really hard to maintain. So
Yeah, I
we will
totally
be going
understand.
beyond that.
Yep, I appreciate that. It's just I don't want all of a sudden to have an excavator combing through that wetlands right to the north if you're chasing these root
Right.
structures.
Right.
I guess I'm okay with no erosion controls as long as that's understood that we're not chasing too far past at least the limit on the north.
Of course.
You can go west and south. I guess south is the roadway, right? It's the driveway, but you can go west as
Exactly.
far as you would like to or need to. That sounds great.
And Michael, you'll
Okay.
be on site the day of that excavation?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah, so
we'll notify.
So go ahead,
Sorry,
Nick. I think
we'll-
you were about to say what I was.
Yeah, I was gonna who to notify on when we schedule that work, and we'll give you guys hopefully a week's notice. We'll need at least a week or two to find and acquire all the plantings before we even go out there. So just let me know when, and I can let me know who to reach out to, and I'll make sure whoever needs to know knows.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say. If you could just let Amy know once you have a schedule with a 1 day, with a 1 to 2 day job like that, we'll want to make sure she has some availability to be out there that day.
So I
Of
think,
course.
Michael, two weeks notice would be ideal.
Yes, I think that's
Okay.
doable. We'll plan on it.
Okay. Amy, anything else with this?
If you vote this will also need a waiver because the deck was in the 50.
Michael, have you produced your waiver?
We have, I believe,
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
we have.
yeah.
I remember seeing that.
Do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and issue a notice of intent for 18 Porter Street, Mass DP number 204-0998. With
And a waiver. Thank you.
Do we have a
Second.
second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxwell, aye.
Carl,
Al Melvin guy.
Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
and myself, I. It's unanimous.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank
Thank you,
you
Michael.
all.
Good luck.
Thank
Okay.
you. Take care.
7:50 now. We're going to go ahead to continued public hearing notice of intent, Littleton Water Supply Connection, Wickham Ave and Taylor Street, Mass DEP 204-995, connection of new water supply well.
And Sarah, before we get started, I'm just going to recuse myself because my brother works for the water department again.
Yep, that's fine. Okay. Great. Who is here to speak with this? Tara?
Hi, good evening. Tara McManus from Weston and Sampson, and I believe
I'm not sure actually if Matt or Corey were going to call in, but nobody else from Weston Sampson. There might have been Littleton Electric, Light and Water departments. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get started anyway, because I think Matt and Corey are very familiar with this project. So we wanted to provide an updated plan for the 7476 Whitcomb Ave area. We worked with the town on locating a few additional trees. I know the last conversation we had, the commission was at a minimum 1-to-1. We were only able to fit roughly 52 trees in of the 58 that we had proposed to remove at the well site. We did, provide 122 shrubs, but we understand that that's not going to be equating to a tree. So we did want to put additional trees at another location that was relatively close to this site. I'm just going to share my screen, assuming at this point everybody's had a chance to at least look at our planting plan. Matt went out and took a look here. I think it is sharing, but maybe it's taking a little bit of time.
No, it's up.
Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So as we were working, we went out to the site. Matt kind of took a walk of the site, located a few areas that would be beneficial. There's just some general photos that were in the letter that we sent in, and I'm just going to zoom right into the aerial here. So we were, instead of the 6 trees, which would be our balance for 1-to-1, we are able to put an additional 6 trees on top of that. So there's going to be proposed 12 trees at 7476, mostly expanding the forest on this side. We didn't want to plant anything, obviously, in the open space here. And then attempting to kind of barricade over, or at least plant some trees along the access road here, kind of provide a little bit more shade, as well as increase, obviously, the tree population in this location. This is the projecting, let's see here, got a little table on this spot here. We're proposing 4 swamp white oaks, 4 red maples, and then 4 hackberries. And roughly the same, there's the same planting plan and sizing as we had indicated in our original planting plan for the well site. The only difference here is that the Littleton Electric, the water department will be more or less monitoring these trees and installation. And the contractor will be required under the well project to plant and monitor those trees. And then after a year or two, the intent would be that the Littleton Water Department would kind of take over ownership of those. I know we talked about at the last meeting some potential parameters to put into the conditions. The Littleton Water Department is fine with those. There's no concerns about monitoring for 2 life cycles, 2-year annual cycles, providing periodic reports as needed, as required by the commission, and then maintaining the 75% success rate for the restoration area. So we wanted to put this in front of the commission. I know that there's not enough folks on the call today for a vote, but we are just looking for a little bit more direction or comments or feedback, if there is any, on whether or not this kind of general layout for where we've proposed is suitable. We're attempting, similar to the other planting plan, roughly trees separated roughly 40 feet apart to allow for future growth and obviously survival, expectancy. I did want to also kind of just go over, we submitted a cover letter as well. I'm just going to pull that up real quick, just to kind of recap what we talked about at the last meeting. On the 6th, there was a question regarding stormwater test pits, and we talked a little bit about the means and methods for stormwater design. I wanted to just confirm, I know at the end of that meeting, Aaron Guasloca from our office had just confirmed that we did also look at the using the RMAT tool at the 2070 flood event, at the 50-year storm, what kind of freeboard we had at that stormwater infiltration basin. So I don't want to go through this entire memo because it is 6 pages, but I did want to just make sure that at least the documentation and information that was requested at the last meeting, we kind of verbally talked about, just put it in writing so that you guys had it in hand. And we do have a foot of freeboard from that 2070 storm. At the previous meeting also, it was confirmed that Green International had approved our test pit summary report, and we're in agreement with our findings and the overall design. And planning board, I believe a month ago or so, has already approved that stormwater design. Then we kind of got into the 1-to-1 discussion on the tree removals. And we talked a little bit about this at length. We we discussed the intent of the commission is to a minimum of 1-to-1, and then therefore we submitted the separate planting plan for the 74, 76. As you recall, we're in a tight area that we've got exposed area in this parcel for the proposed work. We have, I'm just gonna pull this up real quick. We're providing trees along we've got permission from Amazon to provide trees along the easement that we're proposing with the Littleton Water Department. So a stretch of trees in this area coming down from Route 2, following their parking lot, buffering and expanding the forest a little bit more, additional trees along the 50-foot no disturb limit. And then as we get closer into the actual site itself, in the forest itself, we are proposing to restore the original access road with a layer of trees and shrubs. And then coming through on this southern side of the proposed access road, the new proposed access road, providing shrubs, and then an area with trees and shrubs in this area as well. And then as you kind of move back out towards the other end, towards Amazon's parking lot in the other direction, we're providing trees along the entire forest line, pretty much as you go and continue through the area. And then as we start to, shrink up a little bit between the edge of the forest and the parking lot, our tree arborists and our wetlands folks recommended the best suitable course of action was try to not jam a tree in here with little likelihood of survival, and kind of going more with the shrubs along this access road going in. So we've really attempted to maximize the disturbed areas as much as possible with replantings and restoration. And then obviously to kind of achieve a little bit more of the 1-to-1 trees, we're proposing to plant at 74, 76. And then understanding that the 122 additional shrubs is just an added, restoration for this area as far as the habitat itself, trying to bring back some of the native species. There's not too many of them there, but at this point, it'll be an open area and a little bit better for them to thrive as far as shrubs versus trees go. And then as far as getting back to the letter, I know there was a significant concern. Carl brought it up a couple times at different meetings regarding the concerns with the birds of prey and the bats. In our cover letter dated the February 15th, we've provided a significant kind of outline of the summary of our wildlife habitat report, and specifically discussed a little bit more on the birds of prey, as well as the bats and other mammals that would be using this area. The overall parcel itself is pretty significant as far as size and forest land. We do recognize that we are cutting trees down, and that's certainly our attempt to minimize that as much as possible. But the overall parcel itself will remain intact and be available to the animals and other species that are located kind of in the buffer zone. Just going to reiterate kind of the overall site, just to make sure everybody's aware. So this is the overall parcel. The majority of the area is either wetlands itself or forested land, and we have this small sliver where we're coming in for the roadway itself, but obviously that will require, to install the water main in the roadway, require some of the trees coming down. So we are attempting to do our best with restoring and limited impact as much as possible. We also just want to kind of point out, the water department did want us to mention that they do have an annual tree planting plan throughout the entire town. Customers can contact the water department, Littleton Electric Light and Water Department, I should say, to go for an application to have trees planted on their yard. We provided a table here just of the summary that since 2016, the electric and water department has planted over 1,100 trees, and they do plan to continue this program for the foreseeable future in an attempt to, for shade purposes, as well as to hopefully, reduce electric costs overall for individual homes. And, they just wanted to really have us point out that they're not against the environment. They really do, intend to do the best they can with what they have. And unfortunately, it's just one of those situations where to bring clean drinking water to Littleton, as well as the other portion of Boxborough, a small portion of that water is kind of Boxborough, but the intent is to, provide, the best interest of the public health, but also maintaining as best as we can with keeping in conformance with the Wetlands Protection Act, and certainly, the intent is not to deforest or anything like that. I mean, this is we're doing our best here with the limited access, and I think that, we're willing to, adopt, different conditions as needed. And if there are any additional comments as far as the commission goes, that, we'd like to hear. Our intent would be hopefully that we'd be prepared for the next meeting for a vote. Just want to make sure you have everything on hand that you need to get to that decision.
Tara, thank you for that. It's my understanding that you don't have your final response from Natural Heritage. So I think in addition, that's why we were not able to close this evening and look for any comments tonight, and then hopefully to have last discussion closure for March 19th.
Yes, that's the intent. So we have not heard back from, well, we've had meetings with Natural Heritage over the last week or two. They asked for a 2-week extension. That was granted. So we are hoping that the 2-week extension is actually the end of this week. But we are in correspondence with them just to kind of get to a point where they have enough information. They're extremely backed up, was our understanding from them, even though they've had this for months now. But so they're hoping to wrap things up in the next couple of weeks. So I'm hoping to provide an update, at least give you guys the letter prior to the next meeting, so you have a chance to do that. But we're anticipating a turtle protection plan, and going forward with any other requirements for what they may have, seasonal or not, for how to best handle the work within this area.
Okay. Commissioners, does anyone have any questions for Tara?
Where's 7476?
So it's across, if you're familiar with Whitcomb Ave right by Taylor Street, it's across from the new treatment plant location. There's an open field there that's been restored back to kind of natural habitat. It was I believe it was a DOT garage area that was leveled and brought back to a grassed area. You can bring up a Google map.
Is it maintained? Is the plan to maintain it as a grassy area? I know you're going to do trees, but I was wondering about is the grassy area maintained as grass?
I believe it's an open area. The intent was to kind of, bees and other pollinators to kind of bring it back to a natural wildflower. But Matt or Corey, if you have any additional information on that.
Yeah, I can just jump in real quick. That was actually, we took down the old abandoned highway garage a few years ago that was there. When we did that, we planted a pollinator seed mix in there, and then we've just been maintaining the way you're supposed to as far as mowing it just once a year in the fall. The seed mix didn't take as well as we had hoped, but we're planning on revisiting that this coming year.
Thank you.
Can we just confirm? I thought most of the water for this well was going to end up at Boxborough.
No,
No? Okay.
no, most of the water is going to Littleton, so 13% of it goes to Boxborough.
Thank you.
So I've just pulled up a Google image here. So this is our site area down here in the lower quadrant where the Amazon property is. And then you kind of go up a little bit, Whitcomb Ave, just right up here, 74, 76.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a great location to renaturalize and put some trees in there, and hopefully have some success with some taller grasses as well. Anybody else have any questions for the group that's here? Okay. We'll certainly appreciate you working with us and being diligent with adding more as seems as best you can at this point. If we don't have any other questions, we would move this on to March the 19th. And as soon as you hear something from National Heritage, if you could let us know.
Definitely.
Okay. All right, we appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. So Amy, let's go ahead. Lakeshore compliance, we're going to hold off. And I think tree policy, we're going to hold off until the other commissioners are here. But I'd like to just spend just a few minutes briefly just to go over order of conditions. There are a lot that I think at times we take for granted. So we also want to make sure that we're aware of what we're putting on to the applicants. And there are times that you can add more, take away less, but I don't know how often people have a chance or opportunity to kind of see what and how complex at times some of these order of conditions are. So Amy, if you can just screen share that document that you shared with us by email, that would be great.
Hey, you got this?
Yep. And if you could explain what the yellow is, whether it's in or out, or is that just something that is case by case?
So yeah, the yellow is, sort of the case by case, put in the right file number and the owner and all that stuff, description of what the project is. This jargon here is if there's a Fish and Wildlife Natural Heritage input, we'd include that in there. So this is just a setup for the findings. The first part is mostly to do with the Wetlands Protection Act, so it's a little bit more generic. And then the second part of the findings, it would be what comes under the bylaw. So for instance, option one is, all the work's out of the 50-foot no disturb and there's no stormwater. So, end of story. Option two is if there is work in the 50, then start getting into why the waiver was considered, which I had stuck some of those at the end of the document. And then, so that's really just setting up the order of conditions. And then the rest of this is, I've redone these a little bit because I wanted to make it easier to pick and choose which conditions you may or may not want. So, these are all standard. So if you say you want to vote to issue the standard order of conditions, this is what you'll see. And it's not until you get to the yellow highlighted that you would need to make sure that the vote includes the fact that, yes, you do want an environmental or a SWIP monitor. Or I'm going to split this one, I think. If following construction, if the basins don't appear to be functioning, that they have to test it. And that would be relying on whether or not it's there even is a basin associated with that project.
Amy, can we hold up for just 1 second and just scroll back? I'd like to just bring the awareness to the commissioners. So over time, we have been a little lenient about when there's going to be a monitor hired and who that might be. And I've asked Amy to kind of think about this, that if a site needs to have a monitor, I would like the applicant to tell us minimum 30 days ahead of time. So that way it would hit one of our meeting cycles so that we can actually make a connection with who that monitor is and make sure that we support that monitor. So that would be one recommendation. And the other would be when we talk about these storm events, it used to be historically that if it was an inch or more, but I think some of them are so volatile that we're starting to go to 0.5, so half an inch. And just want to make sure that the commissioners are on board with that. I believe it will help the commission and the agents a little bit more. I don't know if Amy, if you can speak to that.
Yeah, and it would also match what the NIPD's permit, if there is one, would be requiring in terms of reporting. So it mirrors that.
Okay. Kyle, I know we got a little hung up on that with King Street not being able to have really that they aligned with one another.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I guess you would either maybe look through this language a little bit more, or make sure we know which one takes precedent or priority. I just only the half inch. I think it's a 1/4 inch of rain now, right? In their NIPD's permit.
Yeah, that's what I'm not sure. And
So-
if they're redoing the DEP stormwater handbook, they might have a different kind of information in there too.
So we'll recognize this is a breathing document that whenever things change, we need to really make sure we're changing this as
Yeah.
well. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hey, Sarah. I'll just throw this out. When the applicant has the environmental monitor, do you think it'd be wise to have that monitor be someone other than a person that works for the applicant? So that the monitor is not the applicant?
Yeah, I mean, I would really prefer that. I don't know if we can do that.
So I thought we had a different. There's two different conditions, right? There's one that we're talking about right now, which is a standard requirement as for NIPTs anyway, that somebody in your company has to perform those weekly inspections, or if there's a rain event of over a quarter inch, they have to perform it within 24 hours. We were talking recently about, yeah, I don't know if this is one that I haven't read through what Amy, no, C13, but having a third party condition where we can say, hey, things have gotten out of control. We want a third party to come out, at your cost and take a look at all of this. And that's what was it Green that came out for that King Street one?
Yes, they've been doing that.
Right. So Green wasn't initially with the town for that project. It was whoever was doing it
So
themselves.
Kyle, following up on that. So Amy, do we have language now that gives us the opportunity, if things aren't going well, we told you you're going to have to bring someone else in?
Right, so that's what C13 is, and
Okay.
I actually this is always in the order conditions. I just highlighted it because I knew it would probably be of particular concern here, which basically gives you the right to say you got to go hire somebody and you're not doing anything until you do it.
And does it state that they have to pay for it?
I was just gonna the last sentence I think kind of covers that, but that's where I was about to go.
Make sure it's
I think we
clear,
can make
yeah.
it clear that it's a third party and to be hired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the way it's written doesn't indicate that.
That is paid for by the applicant. Yep.
Right. I think you just need to clarify. I mean, it does say it has been approved
Yeah,
by
no.
you and hired, but yeah, it's
So I think going forward, this one can stay. I think no matter what. But I think going forward, when you vote in order conditions, just need to make sure whether or not you want a monitor
Okay.
to add to an order condition.
you mean the third party monitor or
No, just as regular, the regular SWIP or environmental monitor.
okay. I mean, I think that's a non-starter. It goes
Oh,
without
no.
saying that they will. That's going to be required if they're dealing with stormwater. That means they're going for a NIPD's permit, and it's part of the NIPD's permit that they have to perform that weekly monitoring or every storm event.
Right. So for example, to a small degree, Michael Samula would be the environmental monitor for 18 Porter.
Right.
It's just a little thing. It's no big deal. It's not SWIP, but there's going to be someone there.
Gotcha.
he
Right.
really
so
blows
for
it-
smaller projects where that you
Right.
don't have to have that stormwater permit, we still need to have somebody there that can play that role. Okay.
So like, the turtle monitor, just use that as an example for this
Yep.
well project. Is that appropriate for the water company to provide that as one of their, could one of their employees be that turtle monitor?
I mean, they have to be certified to be able to do that, right? It can't just be a.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So
I'm not
for
being
example,
either
at Monarch, they hired Oxbow.
I would assume that we would hold. I think we would want. Maybe that's a condition that we put in, Carl. Whoever is doing that monitoring has the qualifications to perform that monitoring, and isn't just the construction superintendent or laborer, right?
Do you think that Natural Heritage,
That would be it. Yeah.
that they would tell the water, for instance, with the turtles, that they would be, okay, that they spell it out, who has to monitor, who can be allowed to monitor?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we don't spell it out, it's not assumed, not expected that it'll be a qualified person. Seems.
No, because for
Obvious.
the natural heritage piece of it, we specifically mention the natural heritage permit up here in the findings.
Yeah.
And so it says whether there's a take or no take and the conditions are adopted.
Okay. So they have to follow their letter in addition to ours. Okay.
It's similar to the two lots over on Hartwell.
Yep. Okay.
I wanted to check this one because, and I haven't gone back to look at when I was flipping through the handbook language, it looks like they are saying do not use the final basins at all, which sounds kind of problematic to me because that means you'd have to build a construction basin, which takes up even more land.
Right.
So that's just a reminder to myself that also may be one that's fluctuating a bit in there.
So what if you So you use the word shall. Storm drainage systems and detention bin shall be constructed. Can you just modify that word?
Yeah, I mean, this has been, these conditions were here before I started.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah, and actually, I almost meant to ask Tara, because they've probably been looking at at the handbook a lot more closely than I have at this point. I think it can stand now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the next time we run into somebody who's building a basin, we can see what the state of the art is almost.
Now, Amy, on the.
'Cause it is-
Good, I wait.
I'll say it is problematic if you are using your final basin as the construction basin. It almost always clogs up, so you got to clean it out.
Well, I think that's where the conditions have to be a little more clear, right? They have to
Right,
be.
which is this one also. That the basin, it doesn't look like they're functioning, which is the problem we had at Turkey Farm. Because it was all clogged up and they had to go back in and rebuild the bottom. So it would infiltrate.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's up to the contractor where we spell it out there. If they want to build 2 sets of basins, then they can, but we would just have to clarify that to make sure it's that the full.
And make sure it says and functional, like long
exactly,
term.
exactly. Functioning upon completion of construction or
Yeah,
designed or whatever.
yeah.
What did we discuss? I can't remember, for chemical treatment on the road for ice and that kind of thing.
We do have quite a few disclaimers in the order of conditions about no de-icing, no sodium chloride.
Yeah, so that's one of the conditions in perpetuity. So for these conditions in perpetuity, and I think the commission also needs to be more clear to me which ones you want attached. P1, I almost always attach. Of course, it's also a little hard to, monitor that, but, and then for instance, that's the other one with, sodium chloride is prohibited. That should probably actually also be always attached.
If you want to do that, why don't you make P4 be P2 and then just always add 1 and 2?
Oh, right, exactly, yeah.
So what are they're allowed to plow the road to gain access. They can't use chemicals. What if the road is in?
Stockpile. Yeah.
What?
Unless you already approved it, yeah.
Right.
But they can't put down sodium chloride on the road for the de-icer, right?
Right. Unless we've approved it.
And as I recall, I believe that is also mirrored in the planning board when they're doing a subdivision or something. Site plan review. I can confirm that.
Okay.
So I think what I'll do is, end up with a standard order of conditions, and then I can just prompt you and say, do you want to add the one about the monitoring? Do you want to add the one about, sodium chloride or whatever? And the only other one I've been going back and forth on is, this whole thing about basically that the wattles are going to be biodegradable plastic. And for a relatively small, in the scheme of things, replacement septic system that's using wattles and they're not going to be there long term, I don't think this is probably necessary. But if something's going to be out there for a year or two, besides the fact that it might not last a year or two, I don't know if you want to consider this. I talked to S&M Farms just to make sure what we were asking was not expensive. And now I'm thinking about this, doesn't sound right, but they say for a regular 12-inch wattle, it's installed $2 a linear foot. And for these biodegradable, it's $3 a linear foot. So it is an increase in cost, but it's not exorbitant.
Is it unreasonable to expect that when they're finished, they take them out?
That's
Nothing more
required.
ugly than, it may be required, but I see so many around that don't get
Yeah.
removed.
Well, and it can be that some of them haven't done their certificate of compliance, which
Right, I was
is
gonna say, I guess that's on us.
usually the thing. People just kind of forget about it, or we don't follow up, and then it's there years later until they
Yeah,
go
they're
to
so
town.
ugly.
Yep.
Well, what is the typical length of time after a project's completed that you expect the wattle to be there?
Well, I mean, we're getting requests for certificate of compliance 10 years later, and they may or may not have removed whatever sediment barriers they had. I don't think the wattles over at Monarch have been through. They've been through 2 winters now, I guess, at this point. And we've been having them replace pieces of it because it just doesn't last that long anyway. But especially at a place like Monarch, we got to make sure those come out because the turtles are crawling across there.
Absolutely.
But then you look at look at King Street. They have to replace them. It seems like every month.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, wattles, they don't hold up to a lot.
No.
Well, they're meant to stop the initial
Right.
movement.
Yep. I think that's going to be case by case, Amy.
Okay. Yep.
They're a hell of a lot better than having a string of hay bales, that's for sure.
Oh my God, especially when those hay bales are wet and heavy and
Those
old.
things will never get removed.
And you generally can't because once they get wet, the strings break and forget it.
Yep.
Yeah, but the fencing is a lot better than the wattles are. Like, I agree with this, the bales, but
Yeah.
I really like to see them go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Just putting a wattle down and putting a stake in it and calling it
Oh.
erosion control doesn't
I
really.
mean,
Well,
yeah.
and it could be so that you all as a committee, so when we have like a septic system come in or something, that we can talk during that process of erosion control when we're looking at the plan and really have them call it out. Is it going to be wattles or is it going to be silt fencing or hay bales? So what-
They usually, especially for the septic systems, they call it. They have a little detail.
Yep. Okay.
And I think, for instance, this one CX is really very project specific. Whether or not the drainage is going to be accepted by the town, so you don't see that very often. And some of the rest of the stuff is very project specific. This is the language if you want signs put up along there. And I actually have a spec that I can give people, the applicant, if they want a spec on what these signs look like. And you also have this notice of presence of areas subject to protection, which you can have recorded. I think the last time we did that was at Wellington Circle, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that future owners, it is on there. It's at the Registry of Deeds. They're going to see it. Doesn't mean they're going to read it, but it's just one more way of trying to get them to do it.
At the top of your page, Amy, mowing the septic field slope. I'd give you a number for just this CX. People, we put a condition that they have to mow the septic field. Well, I'm not sure. I understand.
This was specific to I can't remember what project was it that had one of the really big septic systems, and that actually said it should have had no more than once a year, because it was not the intent to turn that into a lawn. It was to keep it meadow.
Was that
Okay, so that's not saying they
That's what
have to
Cooper
mow
does,
it, there.
right?
That's saying that we wouldn't want them to mow it. Because I'm reading that to be, you gotta mow your lawn.
Right. Well, that's got to be. That's why it's just a CDAS accident. It would need to be adapted for whatever
Okay,
condition
I
is to
understand.
that specific one.
and we used that over at Cooper, I think. Yep.
And use it at was it 628 Newtown Road? He's not allowed to mow his septic system more than once a year.
Will the water company road have a gate? I can't remember.
I'm not sure there's a gate, when it up at Amazon, where it would leave the Amazon parking lot. There's a gate up there, and I'm pretty sure that's going to stay in place.
The only reason I'm asking that is we don't want, other than water company vehicles, we don't want other vehicles getting down there.
I'm pretty sure Amazon's going to require that, but I can double check with them.
Right. You can get down, you might not get back up.
Well, well,
Exactly.
well, I'm thinking of that, and I'm also, we want to limit the amount of vehicles.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
the Raptors will attack them.
Well, and I'm sure Natural Heritage will want to limit the number of vehicles too.
Right. I'm
Um,
hopeful that Natural Heritage does get back to them before the next meeting. Because
Yeah.
I think it's been a while. But, okay. Any other questions or comments on the document, Amy?
Then those go back in. There's the perpetuity one, and yeah, I was going to try to standardize this tree stuff, the monitoring and the tree protection stuff.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about C13 with you, Amy, a little bit more too. Maybe make it a little bit more vague. I saw specific like rainfall amounts and whatnot. I think
Right, and right now it doesn't match the one that was earlier in the list.
right. I mean, I
Yeah.
think this really just goes as simple as if we deem necessary, then you will have somebody ready to go out within whatever
Yes.
it's 24 hours.
So,
7
Yeah.
Kyle, do you think when you have a moment, you could just kind of submit to Amy some edits or thoughts on that?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, thank
Yeah, I
you.
already have it open, so yeah.
And I'm going to try to double check with some stormwater guru about using what's supposed to be a final basin as a construction basin. If that's falling out or something.
Okay.
But
Okay. All right. Well, I think it's helpful, and I think we should try and kind of review these. It's been a while since we've gone through some of these, obviously, and it seems like with the new regs coming out and such that we may have to address this again soon.
yeah, and I think now that I'm thinking of it more, I can get these more standardized and be clear when you're voting what conditions you may want to consider adding. And I will say for a while there, we were all forgetting about this stormwater stuff, the
Yeah.
1,000 square foot or 5%.
Yeah.
That was always like, oh, by the way.
Yeah. I forget, was it Julie that was always really good about remembering that? There's always one person that would bring this
Yeah,
up.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Relied on that one person to do it.
Okay, great. Well, that's very helpful for me too. So
Okay.
I'll rework these also, and we can just kind of keep going.
Okay. Thank you. So we're going to hold off on some of the other discussions. So that closes out this agenda. And so Amy will get back to us in terms of spring dates, but we do know that the next meeting, we won't meet until March 19th. And then we'll have to look at kind of April, May, with the town meeting. So, with that said, it's 8:28. Do we have someone to make a motion to close the meeting?
Hey, Sarah, you said our next meeting won't be until the 19th? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah, so
March
basically-
19th.
basically a month.
Well, that could be a big agenda, couldn't it, potentially?
There's right
It
now,
was
Isn't this
There was only one-
though, also though, in the sense that with the cold, with the frozen ground and stuff, there's not a lot going on? Or am I wrong on that?
yeah. Well, a lot of people are getting ready for the spring though too. So
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
but
for the
Carl,
5th,
what-
there was only one filing on the 5th. It was for
Right.
taking down one tree, and they can wait.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
so it didn't look like there was going to be a hardship to a lot of people if we pushed it to the 19th.
Yeah, no issue.
Yep.
Unless
Okay.
you all want to meet over at Neshoba or something, have a drink,
Meet
then
Carl.
go vote.
All right. With that, do I have a motion? It's 8:30.
I move that we close the meeting from this evening.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Kyle,
Maxfield, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
and myself, I. It's unanimous.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Enjoy the
very
night.
much.
Have a good